You are now tuned in to the On Track with All My People podcast with your hosts, Amber Peters, A.K.A. Ms. P.
And Daytwan David, A.K.A. Dr. Change, ain't nothing strange about it, A.K.A. Mr. David, A.K.A. Ayo Miss.
Oh my God, Daytwan, can we just start the show already? All right, we live and direct. Oh my gosh. Welcome back, everybody. Oh my goodness. Hey, Daytwan.
What is going on, Miss V?
Listen, we got a lot to talk about today. So much to talk about today, but like both of us have been like doing this work for a while now, right? We do our best to support students the way we support students, and like, you know, we're pretty good at it. I don't know. No, we're good at it. We're great at it, right? But there are some populations that sometimes, you know, come across our work that make it really challenging for us. It kind of frustrate us, right? And one of those issues or one of those populations are justice involved youth, right? I think for the both of us in working in this field, you know, there's not always a whole lot of resources and support to really understand those youth and really understand how to support them in figuring out their next steps. So Daytwan, can you tell me about like maybe an issue you faced with someone who was justice involved?
Yeah. So once again, as you stated, we've been doing this for a lot of years. And, you know, sometimes we'll come across a case where it's just kind of like is unnerving because we don't know what to do. We want to support a student, especially when they're reaching out. So I had a young man that pretty much would stay quiet for the majority of the year. When we started getting into kind of tackling applications, he was, you know, a little hesitant, but started to kind of get excited because I guess he realized also that he was in a position now to graduate, right? So now he's like, yeah, I can focus on these applications. We started getting to financial aid application. I didn't have a lot of background information on him. And, you know, there's that question that is asking you about, have you ever been convicted? Have you ever been this, that, and the third, whatever? And then once he saw that question, he kind of paused. He kind of been like, I need to talk to you after class. So we went to talk after class and he was like, hey, I have this case that is pending. It's still being worked out. I'm not sure what the consequence of the situation is going to be. And so I was just like, man, like I have worked with a lot of students. I've worked with students that have been in various situations, but never a student that particular question was going to prevent them from being able to afford college as like an avenue or get access to federal aid, right?
Yeah.
So it was unnerving because there was a lot of different things that I had to learn, discover, and do. And upon realizing that, I'm like, man, there's a lot that this young man is going to have to go through to even get to the first step, right?
Yeah.
So many different things that needs to happen. What are your thoughts on that?
That I have never come across it, but in all of the trainings, right? You do the Options Institute and you do all these different things. They always tell you about that question that could pop up that could, you know, potentially cause havoc. But like, I've never had a student that actually was involved in the justice system, right? And so like if I ever got one, I'm not really certain that I know what to do, right? But we have somebody here, our guest, Marsha Milan-Bethel, who is going to help us to unpack this and really understand, like, what does it mean to be justice involved and help us to really understand the landscape. So, Marsha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for having me. Nice to meet you, Dr. Change. It's always a pleasure to see you, Amber.
Absolutely. So let me tell y'all a little bit about my friend Marsha here, okay? Marsha has over 15 years in youth development, y'all. Almost like more than 15 years. She's been in the field for a minute. She's a doctoral student at St. John's University, and she's a Frontline Hero Award winner. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. She's also a student services specialist at Hostos Community College, and she's going to give some perspective on this whole thing for us. So we're going to start you off with what we always start off with, which is our energizer, right? We want people to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So, you know, we're going to dig into your business just a little bit, but we're not going to ask nothing crazy, I promise. Okay. So the game is called This or That. Okay. And you got to choose one. There's no middle ground.
Okay.
You hear what I'm saying? No middle ground. Okay. So the first question, we're gonna do it real easy. The first question: indoors or outdoors?
Always outdoors. Always outdoors.
My kind of
Outdoors,
people.
yeah. She's a runner, y'all. She's a runner. She's a track star.
Amber, you better stop singing on this microphone.
Second question: working with high school youth versus working with college youth.
Ooh, you might hurt some feelings on this one.
I know. I'm gonna say I think I have some more. I've worked with both, right? And I always love working with students. I find I'm student centered. I really love working with college youth because I feel like I get the whole gamut. I get, your traditional college age students, 18, just coming out of high school. You have the older students, and I love seeing the parents that come to the campus. I love the vibe on a college campus. So yeah, college. Sorry.
Listen, it is what it is. She picked it. No shade to the high school student.
Absolute shade to the high school students.
Yeah.
But I think that's a solid choice.
Right. Next question. Which one would you redo? Your master's or undergrad? I feel like this one is easy.
This is easy, undergrad, because I feel like that was a period of transition for me, right? A little bit more independence, learning who I am, what are the things that I really enjoy. So definitely undergrad. Master's,
I figured.
Yeah,
I figured. And she loved her college. What college did you go for undergrad?
I started at SUNY Potsdam, transferred to SUNY Albany. I love SUNY Albany. And then I got my master's at Manhattanville and now I'm at St. John's. So yeah, I've done.
There you go. All right. Next one. This one, and especially after the panty. Working from home, working in the office. Which one would you rather? This or that?
You see the anxiety? The anxiety is building right now.
Yeah.
I can't see her, but she's rubbing her chain or something.
You know what? I think my favorite coworker has to be my dog. So I'm gonna say home. I work hard from home. Not to say that I don't, work hard from home, but I do enjoy being in the office as well. I think it's just a different vibe. But my best and worst coworker is my dog. He's right there, so he's like cheering me on.
Love it.
And last one: sweet or salty?
Sweet, always sweet.
Yes, she's on my team. Sweet over salty every day, all day.
Sweet over salty. Okay. So we're here, and we want to be able to. Well, thank you for doing that energizer. Of course, I think you got one thing wrong, but I'm not going to judge you. It's your opinion. You got one thing wrong, but I'm not going to judge you. We do want to kind of get into like the sort of like your story. Like, what's your story? What are like 3 top things that have kind of led you today? Things that are about your life that led you to where you are today.
The 3 things I think that led me to here today is definitely my experience, and being able to recognize what was a good experience and what was something that, I wanted to walk away from. I come from a background where I worked with a very dynamic group of people in the Youth Development Institute, that was part of the fund for the city of New York. And during that time, I was training practitioners on how to work with young people. But I kind of felt like a hypocrite because I didn't have that much experience working with young people. So I think one pivotal piece that really helped me decide the work that I wanted to do was getting involved with the Big Brothers Big Sisters peer mentoring program, right? So I was like, here I am training people on how to work with young people, but I'm not connected to any young people right now. I didn't have any nephews at that time or anything. So I became a big sister with Big Brothers Big Sisters 9/11 program. I had a young lady who was 12 years old. She lost her dad on 9/11. That was a historic and tragic event. And by working with her meeting her sister. She was the oldest of three. She had two younger sisters. And sometimes just being with her and seeing her transition that role of caretaker for her sisters to just being a little girl, like she would just get in my car and just be like, all right, I could be me now. I think that was a huge experience for me because she is now 31 years old and she is getting married and she has her master's degree and she's going into education. And I just think that just that entire experience of being with her and, sharing my story, sharing moments with her. She actually went with me when I decided to attend Manhattanville College to get my master's degree. And she was like, yo, this is dope. She was at my graduation.
Wow.
To see her really to go in the same path. Her mom was also in education. And she's doing it now and she's doing the work. So I think that really transitioned me. And I think that really gave me the idea of how I do my work, right? So when I work directly with students, I treat students how I would want my 5 nephews, my niece, and my big sister to be treated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's treated with respect, to be empathetic, to listen, right? Shut your trap and just listen. Like, what are their goals? What are their struggles, right? What are the resources you connect them to? So I think that those are like the real pillars that I use for my work. I always bring it back to that. Did I treat the student fairly? Did I treat them the way I would want somebody in my family to be treated? And did I provide them with direction? Not only provide them with direction, but did I connect them directly to the person that they need to speak to?
Wow. I love all of that. All of that. No, because I mean, honestly, I think, when we think about our work with students, those are the things that like would make it meaningful for a young person, right? When they feel heard and they feel like, wow, this person really did everything possible they can do for me. Like it changes lives. That's why you got people at your graduation. You got kids showing up at graduation is because they felt that on a deeper level. So wow, thank you for that. I guess now we can kind of like jump into, why we're here, right? So we know your story. We got a little bit about you, right? But we need help framing this thing, right? We know kids come with their own unique challenges and some of them come already with barriers, but like, help us to really understand like justice involved youth.
That's a lot. That is a lot. When I first got to Hostos, I ran a program called Strive for Success. It was a peer mentoring program where I was connected to community-based organizations that served as a pathway for students to get to college. And in that program, I had second-year college students mentoring first-year college students. And I had an organization that was working with men that were coming home from prison, and they were part of a in-prison college education program, right? So they had a little bit of a foundation. So on paper, I didn't know that these men were formerly incarcerated. So it was one particular, I was like, he got a 4.0. Like, he's coming to Hostos. Like, I don't understand why. But when I met him and he decided to share his story, right? Because I never asked. I got to really hear what happens, and I think that our young people can get caught up with that peer pressure and that making that one decision that's going to affect their life negatively, right? And put them in the system. And they probably were like close to graduating already, right? And I think that we're working with the justice involved population is one, I never really ask. If they choose to share, they share. Again, it's not going to change the way how I work with students. I'm always going to treat them fairly. And I'm never going to judge them. But knowing where they came from and knowing what their struggles were and, knowing who they are on paper is only one part, right? But I'm always like, your past doesn't define you. It's what you do right now that impacts all your tomorrows. And that's what I'm here to work on, right? So forget all that stuff. I don't care to sit here and listen to the whole story. If you want to share it, I'm going to hear it. But like, what did you, now what? All right. So that happened. Now what? And I think that when it comes to our young people, the younger generation, I think it's a little bit different because they haven't really found themselves yet, right? So what are the things that they really want to do? So I think that we're working with we're talking about juveniles coming out of detention centers, I think it's a lot of, what are the things that you really want to do in your life, right? 5 years from now, where do you want to be, right? You're getting ready for work. What are you doing? Who's with you? How are you getting there, right? And having them picture it, right? I always do this activity that if you were on the cover of a magazine, right? Nobody really gets magazines at home anymore, but if you're on the cover of a magazine, how are you going to pose for the picture, right? What's the title of the article going to be, right? And what's the impact? What's the change that you're going to make in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people that come and say, like, I want to, do social work. I want to make a change, but you could impact change in so many areas. Like, it's like trying to just be a little bit more specific. And I think the most important thing when we're working with this population is asking them directly, what does support look like to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I could think that support for me is you be my cheerleader, you get me there. But support for a young person to be like, yo, check on me on Fridays and make sure I'm doing my homework, or just check in on me. So always asking them, what does support look like to you? So how do I get to support you in the way that you feel needed? So that's really important with that. And then again, it's not only connecting them to resources, but the right resources, right? Not just connecting them to Amber P and Dr. Change, but why am I connecting you to these particular people? And letting them know that they're in my network. And it's like, I wouldn't connect you to this person if I didn't have a reason to. And also reminding them that I don't have all the answers. I'm one person. I don't have the answers to all the questions. So I have to connect you to someone else. So those are some of the things that I think that we do. At Hostos, we are working with the Horizons Detention Center. We do offer the OSHA 40 certification. And we've been doing that, I think, since the pandemic, and I think it's been going really well. We're hoping that we'll see more students transition from there to college, to Hostos, to BCC, where it is that they feel fit. But I also think that we have to take the time to listen to our young men and our young ladies, because college is not always the answer for them. For some of them, they want to do a trade. They need to be working with their hands, right? So just a few weeks ago, I did a presentation about Hostos to Trinity Wall Street that works with this population. And it was via Zoom. And so I couldn't connect with them like the way how I wanted to, but I tried my best. And half of the room had no interest in going to college. But I'm there to do a job, and I'm there to let them know, like, okay, so then I asked them, I was like, what are you interested in? They're like, oh, I'm interested in construction, or I'm interested in, doing this, right? Trades, which are lucrative careers that you can make some good money in. So then it's just like, okay, I shouldn't be talking to you about coming and getting a degree. You could come and get a degree later, but let me talk to you about these certificate programs that we have at Hostos, right? And these other programs that we have, because that's another pathway into college, right? Now, with continuing ed courses, you can probably get some credits that will bring you in as an upper freshman. We did have one student in the room that was doing engineering, like construction engineering, as a major within CUNY, and he's doing pretty well. So he was inspiring other students in the room. So I think we have to give opportunities for that to happen, that authentic trend, conversation to happen between them, and just really listen to them, because college may not be the answer right now. It might be the answer a little bit later when they're a little bit older. We're considered non-traditional students, So
Yeah.
that's what I think on it.
Yeah, a lot that was shared there, and also some resources that I think people should get access to. You helped us to really understand, or provide us some insight on to what justice involved youth, like what are they going through, what support is needed, what's some of like the best practices to supporting them. I want to dive a little deeper into understanding what are some of the barriers that justice involved youth face as they're trying to plan for their futures, re-entering the communities and planning for their futures.
Housing is one. Housing is a big thing. for a lot of the men, and I talk about this with the experience that I've had with the men that I've worked with, you know, a lot of the men that I've worked with, rented rooms in different communities to not be in the community that had impacted, that made that change, right? Because they may have enemies, they may have this, you know, they don't want to go back, you know, to prison. So housing is a really big thing. Who you live with, right? Because who you live with matters. You know, if you came from a broken home, you probably don't want to go back to that broken home. So I think housing really matters. That's the forefront, really. And that can make you or break you, because if you're couch surfing and you're thinking about where you're going to sleep next, right?
Oh yeah.
So that you're safe. The school's the last thing that's on your mind. So you can enroll in college, but you're not going to stay. You're not going to stay enrolled because you don't know where you're going to sleep tonight. You know, and in my work with Amber, you know, we've had students that, you know, in high school that were dealing with that. And so that's one, having money in their pocket, having a Metro card. You know, CUNY has a great foster initiative, the Youth Matters program, that will provide some support with tuition and everything. And I know each of the colleges has an office that will help students apply, you know, for housing, but that takes time. So I think that if we can make sure that a young person has a stable home, right, that they have those needs met, housing, food, transportation, then we can expect them to become a good student.
Appreciate that. Just thinking about like, so you're not, so I think you're speaking to something very important, which is before we can even tackle like them planning for the next steps, we need to tackle them being able to feel comfortable to get into the next day, right?
Yeah.
So we looked at this from like the individual standpoint. I wanted you to take a few minutes to kind of give us to understand what are some of the systemic issues and barriers that justice involved youth have to face as they like re-enter and kind of plan for their future. So are there institutions, communities, laws, like what are these things that are there? And I know that's a loaded question.
It's loaded.
Yeah.
I think there's so much to even talk on this podcast to know. I don't think that it's the same for every single person, right?
Right.
For most people that come out, I mean, I think it's different for adults versus young people. Getting out of detention center is going to be different than getting out of, you know, a prison in upstate New York. You know, when you come out of prison, you probably just get the money for the transportation. Is be like, yo, pat on the back, good luck. We're going to see you in 6 months. You know, so reentry has been a problem. But there are, I've been doing research on this too. In the several years, there has been an increase in the number of reentry programs that are available to our population, and that provide different resources, right? So they can provide resources with housing and, you know, college access, you know, making those applications for, you know, for everything. How good are they with working with the population? You know, there hasn't really been a lot of studies on those agencies about their effectiveness. So you have to go with what you know, right? So I know I know that there's a lot of programs. There's Getting Out and Staying Out. There's College Initiative. There's CCF that only works with women. You know, there's so many programs available, and some of them, what I really like is that there's actually a network. There's actually a reentry network of all of these professionals, and we have an email exchange, and I could say like, hey, I have a student named John that needs housing. Like, does anybody know where I can help John get some housing? This is his age. This was his situation. And people will respond like, hey, check here. You know, do this, check with this person, reach out to this person in this organization. So within that, just the email chain, across the city, we're trying to help people individually. But sometimes, you know, when young people come to a campus and they've been involved in the criminal justice system, we don't know, right? That information is hidden, right? We don't know. So we don't know what supports that they need. And that's why I always say, like, I treat everyone with respect, and I treat them like I would my nephews and my niece and my mentee. And try to get them to like share, like, okay, what is it that you need? What's holding you back? You know, sometimes I'll go through their grades and I'm just like, okay, something happened in 2015. And I was like, tell me what happened to you in 2015. because you didn't do well that semester, you know, and they'll start opening up about maybe having anxiety, depression, or that they were couch surfing, or what their issues are. And I'm like, okay, well, look who you are now, and look how well you've done now, right? And you've overcome, you know. And I think that sometimes we have to remind our young people, because there's nobody doing it at home. We have to remind them of their accomplishments. Like, look where you were at your lowest, and look where you are now, and look what you're working towards, right?
Yeah.
Now let's make
Yeah.
the connection to where you are now and where you want to be in 5 years. So let's start backwards planning. And I do that a lot with students. Backwards planning. Tell me where you want to go, and I'm going to give you the 3 different roads, 4 different roads to help you get there. And I'm going to do my
Right.
check-ins with you, make sure that you're still on that path. You know, and a lot of times, you know, working within the CUNY system, I can't remember one name from another, but I will always remember your story. So if you always share, like, you don't remember me, I'm the student that blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I remember. You're the one that wants to become a physician's assistant. You know, how is it going on? You did ask me a specific question, Dr. Change, and I just wanted to remind you about some other barriers, right? So people that have been involved in the criminal justice system, I think that they don't know their rights. I think that they have to always know, they have to know, you know, what their rights are in regards to like getting a job. Speaking about the benefits of having someone who has been formerly incarcerated, and the tax benefits for the organization or the company. I think they need to know their rights about, you know, so for example, I had a student that I was working with since before he came to Hostos. He's now an alumni of Hostos, and he's gone on to a senior institution, and he wants to do social work. But because of the fact that he had a felony conviction, it could impact his licensing. So he has a step to make sure it's not that he cannot have his license in social work. He just has to do an extra step to make sure that he gets his licensing. So who's going to support him with that, right? What is that step? What does that look like? So those are some of the things that we have to really remember. We don't tell, you know, students can get into nursing. Students can get into rad tech. We just have to know what their rights are, and then what are those steps to make sure that they can get their license.
Wow. That, like, right there, I'm just like blown away, because here are a bunch of things that, like, I kid you not. What is this? Like, this is my 10th year going into this. I would have never known, you know, what you're saying about like these barriers to even employment. Like, we know that there's the regular barriers to employment, right? Like, before they had to check the box to say if they were a felon and all these other things, right? So we know that part. But like these other things that, like, you could do all of these different things, and like, I think for some people in their minds, they're probably like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything because I went to prison for whatever time, or I was in juvenile detention. And like, there are ways to do it, but who knew?
Listen, I get emails like, I applied to go to Hostos, but I have a felony conviction, so you could throw away my application. I'm like, wait, hold on.
Wow.
Let's take it back. And like, no, that doesn't matter. Like, we can get you an education, right? Because when we look at research, right, recidivism is, you know, how many times, like, when person goes back to prison, right? And the way how they measure recidivism is, you know, is tied to education, right? So if you have an education, right, even if you have a bachelor's degree, sorry, let me take it back. Someone who gets an associate's degree, it is said that there's about a 15% increase in salary, right, for men and women, just with an associate's degree, right? Having a job is going to get you your health insurance, right? So then you have a better quality of living, right? So you're in better health, right? Having a stable job and having a routine, right? You go to work from 9 to 5, you come home, you know, whatever, is going to have you build lasting relationships with your family, right? Because you have a routine, right? So just having an associate's degree is going to help you to get that job, to get away from those negative aspects in life that could potentially get you to go back to prison. Getting a bachelor's, even more. So you have a lot of people that have been in the criminal justice system that have their master's degree, that are going for their doctorates, that are head of companies, that are working to become lawyers. So it's not that they cannot do it, right? It's just that you have to have that right network, right? That right team that's
Mm-hmm.
going to support you and applaud you, right? I know who my team is, right? And it comes from my God, it comes from my family, right? And it comes from a very small group of people that are like outside of my family, right? Amber P is one of them, right? She's one of my support networks. So when it comes to that, you just have to know like who's the right person that I'm going to reach out to, to get to where it is that I need to be. I had a student also really good with computers, really good with computers. He was formerly incarcerated. He was an addict. He was one of my mentors in my program. And instead of celebrating his birthday, we celebrated his sobriety, right?
Mm.
Because that was important for him. So, his birthday was close towards his sobriety date. So we celebrated his sobriety because we wanted to let people know that, we wanted to let him know we see the efforts that you're making. And I'm sure that it's really hard. And you're on the right track. And for him, we tried to get him a job on campus, right, to make a little bit more money so he could be at Hostos a little bit longer, work as a college assistant. And he had that question, right? Have you been formerly incarcerated? Have you had a felony conviction? And not coming to me, not telling me anything. He shied away. And he threw the application in the garbage. And he was like, F this. I ain't doing this because they're asking me too much about how many times I've been arrested. I'm a former addict. I can't tell you how many times that I've been arrested because I don't remember all the times that I was arrested because I was high. And, we had to like work through that. And I was like, I can help you with this. Like, I can help you. I really want you to get this job. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So that's another barrier, right? It's like seeing that question and just saying like, F this, I'm not going to do it. But my thing too, when I tell students, even when they apply for scholarships, I was like, if you don't apply,
Right.
there's no way that door's gonna open. But if
That
you
part.
apply, you gotta put the chance. So what's the worst that could happen? You get a no, then you
Mm-hmm.
move on to the next one, I mean, doors have been closed in our face and we continue to do the work. We continue to be passionate about the work that we do. And we continue to be respected for the work that we do. Right. So it's like we want to make sure that our young people get there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love it. I love it. I love it. One last question. I'm gonna break it up in two parts. I'm gonna ask you the first part of the question. The first part of the question is like if I am new to working with a student who is justice involved, right? And bringing it back to what you said, right? So like at the college level, there's like no disclosure. So I'm guessing also at the high school level, if you don't disclose, you don't disclose, right? But like if a student has disclosed with you that, they were justice involved in some way, right? What would I need to know as a person working with the students? What are some things that I should think about as I'm working with the student?
Their future. What do they want to do with their future? And what are the challenges that they anticipate? Because if you can have them identify the challenges, and you're going to make sure that you're going to connect them to the right resources, right? If you know that they have a learning disability, you want to make sure that they have the documents so they can get, to the disability resource center so that they can get help, right? One of my students had gotten shot and he couldn't write with his dominant arm, right? And we were able to get him services so that he can get a device and permission from professors to record his lectures, right? And then have them typed out for him, right? It was just an easy thing. And he had that service until he was able to write, So I think that's one. Asking them like, what do you think are going to be some of the challenges? Do you need help with time management? Do you need help with studying techniques?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now I just want to get you through your first semester. So what can I do to get you through your first semester? And things like that. Financial aid. I know Dr. Change was mentioning it before. So when you read the question, the question really is there's only an impact with financial aid if you were convicted
Of a drug related offense.
right, while you were receiving financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
So the student has to be, so if they were a first year student at Hostos, right, or whatever, or wherever, and they were charged while having financial aid, then their financial aid is going to be impacted the next year. They're not going to probably have it, but it's not, it's not that they won't get it, because if you realize that there are, we have restored Pell and TAP in New York for people who are in prison. So there is going to be an increase in prison education programs for college education in the future, right? There has been a lot of back and forth with that. So I'm really happy that we have Pell and TAP back for New York State. And I think that can definitely make a tremendous impact, for people coming home, because they already have an idea of what it is that they want to do once they come home and they want to continue their education and things. So.
Awesome. And then the second part of that is like, what would you, a young person who is like deciding to go to college or is in college, right? Maybe it's their first year and that first year is very critical. What are some things that you would tell that young person to do for themselves and like in them advocating for what they need?
Utilize your resources. I think the most beautiful thing about college, whether CUNY, SUNY, private, is the multitude of resources that are on campus. Tutoring, the writing center, the computer lab, a loaner device, getting involved with leadership programs, getting involved on student activities, joining the basketball team, joining the intramural team. I think the best years for me were college because I got to get involved. I was part of, Fuerza Latina. I was part of, the Black Student Alliance. I had a job off campus. I participated, I helped the track team. Like there was just so many things that I could get involved in that like college was like my life. Right. And I got to meet those lifelong friends. I have friends that I've had, since I started college. And what I think is that why it's important is because in college, you find people that have similar goals as you, right? So if you're interested in computer technology, right, your friend might advance a little bit faster than you because maybe he has an uncle that works, for Dell or something like that, or for a company. But then you run into him one day and he might be looking for someone and he knows the college experience that you have because you got the same degree, and he might offer you a job, right? He or she might offer you a job. So I think that, that's the beauty, is that you make your friends, but you're making your friends that are eventually going to become in your professional network, and they're going to help you later on. So it's just like, I think another thing that we have to work with our young people is how to network successfully.
Right? Oh yeah.
How to network successfully, how to maintain those relationships. You meet someone of importance. You want to reach out to them on LinkedIn. You want to send them an email. You want to maybe send them your resume. You want them to remember. Having your elevator pitch, that's big too, is just knowing, like, stating your cause and stating your name, because people remember you from your experience, not just by your name, but by your experience and what you told them about you. Remember, you always got to share your story. So I think that is a big tip that I would offer to practitioners and to students, is the art of networking.
Art of networking. So I'm networking right now. If I came to you and I said, I would like for you to mentor me, and you agreed to do it, and I say, here is a situation as a practitioner in the field of youth development and college access that I've struggled with. And I say, hey, I have a student. They have recently, they've been super excited about the college process, when they have recently felt as though some of the questions on the applications were impacting the way that they are thinking about their opportunities moving forward. They don't know what they're going to do. What would be the top advice that you would give me to support me through supporting that student, not only to complete the process, but to get to the next step?
Damn, I feel like I'm not stumped. I think that there's different situations, right? First, I would let you know that, thank you for working with the student, right? And I would ask you probably some questions about the student, like where the challenge is, so I can have a better understanding, right? And then I would have you walk me through the process probably of, like, what is this challenge, and then get through it. Because right now I've been supporting students with transferring from CUNY to senior institutions. And we have those hard questions and applications, and, it might impact them. But then there's always a plan B. So if the student is not feeling comfortable, I'm not going to push it, right? You don't put a square peg in a round hole. I'm not going to push it. So I'm going to look for alternative programmings that are not going to, where the student is going to feel more comfortable. Because if the student is feeling uncomfortable at the application phase, they're not going to feel comfortable at the school, and we're going to wind up with that student, right? So I would rather them look at something that's a little bit more comfortable, right? So I think that that's the route that I would probably take. And then, for example, if a student is choosing between going to a private school and a community college, then come to the community college first. And then if you still want, to go to NYU later on, then you can go to NYU later on once you get your associate's degree, and I'm going to help you get there. Maybe at that point, once you have an experience, your 2 years experience, and you realize your potential and you realize what you could do academically, then we move on now, and I'll get you to the Ivy League. It's been done.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen episode 13, I think, no, is it episode 13 or 31? I'll send it to you, Amber, of Humans of New York. We have a Hostos alumni that came to Hostos.
Oh, I did see it on Instagram. I did.
Instagram, yeah. He's actually a member of the Hostos Justice Committee, where we continue to support formerly incarcerated individuals with achieving their associate's degree and beyond. And he actually went to NYU, and he graduated cum laude, I believe, and he was the speaker at their graduation. So he went from prison to a community college, got his associate's degree, and went on to NYU and did his thing. And he's working at one of the top restaurants in New York City. You know what I mean? And there's so many people that have been involved in the criminal justice system that are doing so well and doing so great and want to give back. Find those people to come back and volunteer and mentor in your organizations. Find those people, because they will do it happily. They will do it happily.
I think you try to set me up just now. You say that you were stumped, and then you went in when you started talking about it, the path, and then you locked in. You found your zone.
Right? So I have to really think about it, right? Because it's just I could just be like, just don't do the application, right? But that's not that's not an appropriate answer to just say just don't do it. Student doesn't feel comfortable, don't do it. But then what is the alternative, right? So you have to always think about what is the alternative. So sometimes it takes a little minute, for it to come.
Yeah, I realize it.
Yeah. And I think in a supervisory capacity, you have to really, you have to work with your staff. Like, you hired your staff for a reason. I think that, in the past when I've worked with my staff, it was just okay, so what's going on with the student? And, how does the student feel about this? And what has been done? And, you wind up figuring out the solution. You don't do no college applications. You figure out okay, right, this college application is a little bit more challenging, right? The Common App, I hate the Common App, right? It has to get done to get into some of the schools, but sometimes I don't like the questions that they ask. Why do you need to know this? What is that? But there are implications. And in the study that I've done, I know what the barriers can be at the senior institutions and things like that. CUNY is not going to ask you that. Columbia is not going to ask you that. So finding a way for them to feel a little bit more comfortable, I think is how we're going to help them be more successful.
Awesome. Love it. So let me provide the recap. There's a lot. I mean, I'm going to my notes. I've been typing them up and putting them in the chat. So you mentioned earlier on, make sure that you're treating students fairly, like your family, right? And connecting to resources. You want to make sure that theory and practice mirror and support one another, right? Like you mentioned that you felt like a fraud earlier when you were just doing theory and helping people develop, but you didn't have the actual experience. So you wanted to make sure you got that. And now you're a better practitioner, able to better serve students because of it. One of the things that you dropped, I tried to capture it as you said it, and it's not as eloquent, so I'm gonna have to listen to it back and put it on a shirt. But you said that your past doesn't define you. But what you also stated was that what you do from this point forward will impact the rest of your tomorrows, right? And I think that's such an important grounding piece for young people so that it centers them in the moment to say like, hey, this is where you can go, right? Somebody else one of my homegirls mentioned that life is to be understood backwards, but to be lived forward. So I think that it really kind of corresponds and coincides with what you're stating there. If you are to this exercise right here, and I love that it's visioning, it's projecting. I do a similar activity, but you mentioned like putting them on a magazine, right? And again, thinking about their pose, the title of that magazine, and the main points that will be discussed, right? Is them being able to position themselves into other atmospheres and other spaces that they want to actually pursue. And I absolutely love that. You actually said that, and this connects to a couple of times you've mentioned it, which I think is such a powerful best practice, is to provide as much autonomy as possible to these young people so that they can make decisions for themselves, right? Not saying like, here's how I'm going to support you, but saying what does support look like for you, right? Because for some of the young people,
right?
what are the options? 100%. And getting them also, you said it earlier, to investigate like, what do you think are some of the barriers are going to be that you're going to face, right? Because their perception oftentimes is what their reality becomes, right? So just getting them to kind of process that. Don't just connect them to resources, but provide them with the why. Super and important, extremely important, because young people, that why, I think for people in general, that why needs to be there so that they're able to also take value with it. So let's continue because you dropped so much. We need spaces for authentic conversations, right? And however that starts, meeting young people where they are is a fundamental youth development practice. And I know you're grounded from YDI. I love YDI and what they're able to do and how they've grown over this time. You also got a chance to kind of look at some of the barriers, which we'll recap in the post episode that we'll have after this. One of the key questions that you asked that I absolutely love is, what do you need and what is holding you back? This speaks to autonomy, right? Like rather than doing that work for them, having them to be able to speak to that for themselves. And lastly, reminding our young people of their accomplishments. Look where you were at your lowest and look where you are now, right? So we are super, super grateful for what you've been able to provide in this space. We want to give you the last word. What is one lasting thing that you want to provide to the space?
You mentioned the t-shirts, and my friend, one of my colleagues posted made a post the other day on Facebook on a t-shirt that she got from someone. And it says, a bad day only lasts 24 hours. And that for me was a complete game changer, because it was just like, why am I talking today about how angry I was yesterday and the way how this person reacted to blah, 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 right? A bad day only lasts 24 hours. So if you didn't have a good day today, take a nap, go to sleep. We're going to start again tomorrow, you know? And I think that that's another important thing for our young people to remember, like stop holding up and stop wasting so much energy and being angry about what happened yesterday. And then just get back to the grind and just focus today.
Awesome. Yeah, well, Marsha, can you let the people know where they can follow you, right? Like we're dropping LinkedIn since, we are talking more to the professional experience. Can you tell them where to find you on LinkedIn?
You could find me on Hostos. I'm the only Marsha at Hostos. I will help you with your enrollment. I do work with, I am the CBO liaison for many of the community-based organizations. So if you do have any students that are coming into Hostos that are struggling with that enrollment, please feel free to reach out to me. I am on the directory at the campus page. I am on LinkedIn. I work with all young people. I don't just work with anyone. I work with all young people, and I think that I drive my bosses a little bit crazy because I'm like, I want to learn more about this. Tell me how to help our immigrant student population. How do I help them get through the DREAM Act scholarship? I want to get training on that. I work with every single student. So if you are a CBO practitioner, please reach out to me. I could connect you with our admissions office if you want, to tell students why come to Hostos. If you need help with the enrollment process, please reach out to me. If you want me to come and talk to your young people, I'd be happy to do that. And yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. No big deal. Amber P knows how to get in touch with me.
Of
I'm also going to
course.
share comments with you that were shared with me in regards to students' rights, and so that you can have it. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marsha. Marsha, listen, Marsha the homie for long time, long time ago's days, right? But I just want you guys to really understand like the wealth of knowledge this one. I think I might have been, or close. I think I was one of your last hires, actually, not the first, but like the last when you like transition. But yeah, like we've been cool for a while, and this lady has lots of information, so make sure you connect with her on LinkedIn. But thank you guys for watching. We had a great time today, and we can't wait to see you, or we can't wait for you to tune in, I guess, to the next episode. See you guys later.
Thank
All
you.
right.